Hello students, I am Dr. S.S.Vaidwan, Department of English, Art College Alwar, and today we'll discuss a beautiful poem by Robert Frost, and the title of the poem is Birches. This poem is prescribed in your paper 5th B, that is the American literature. So let us discuss about Robert Frost and his beautiful poem Birches. Dear students, as you all know, Robert Frost was born on March 26, 1874, and he passed away on January 29, 1963. He was an American poet, and his full name was Robert Lee Frost. His works were published in England before it was published in the United States, and Frost is admired for his realistic depictions of rural life and his command of American colloquial speech. Frost wrote about rural life in New England and presented complex social and philosophical themes. In almost all his poems, one will find the rural setting of New England and the rural rustic life. Frost is one of the important poets of America, and he is the only poet to receive 4 Pulitzer Prize for poetry. In 1924, he received the Pulitzer Prize for New Hampshire, a poem with notes and grace notes. In 1931, again for collected poems. In 1937, a further range, and in 1943 for A Witness Tree. So he is the only poet to receive 4 Pulitzer Prize for poetry. He was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal in 1960 for his poetic works, for his poetic achievements. On July 22, 1961, Frost was named Poet Laureate of Vermont. So a great man, a great poet of American literary corpus. Dear students, here it would be in the fitness of things to cite the influences of Robert Frost. He was greatly influenced by Robert Graves, Rupert Brooke, Thomas Hardy, W.B. Yeats, and John Keats, and of course William Wordsworth. All the Romantic poets, they influenced Frost's poetry. Birches is a beautiful poem. It first appeared in Atlantic Monthly in the August issue of 1915, and the poem was included in the Mountain Interval collection in 1916. It is a poem of 59 lines, and the poem is written in blank verse, and the language is very simple. So you should remember that it is a poem of 59 lines and written in blank verse. The minute details of nature are presented in a very vivid and picturesque way. It seems that Frost has just painted before us the real birches and the activities going on around on the birches. It is one of the most beautiful nature poems of Frost. The poet, he feels peace and tranquility in natural surroundings like Wordsworth. He could depict the sensuous beauty, the color and sound of rustling leaves. As I quote from the poem, often you must have seen them loaded with ice in a sunny winter morning after a rain. They click upon themselves as the breeze rises and turn many-colored as the stir cracks and crazes their enamel. So this is what is often referred to as Frost's sound of senses, and he presents these beautiful images, sensuous beauty and color and the sound of rustling leaves in his poem. The language of this poem is conversational, and the poet he used first person I and second person you. So we can say that this poem is very conversational. The poem moves between imagination and fact. The poet in this poem he reflects his desire to withdraw from the materialistic world and play in the lap of nature. Here in this poem symbolized by the boy's game of swinging birches. The poet, that is Robert Frost, he says that I want to swing the branch of birches. And the poet he beautifully describes to us, if we look at the opening stanza of the poem, he says, when I see birches bend to left and right across the lines of straighter, darker trees, I like to think some boy's been swinging them. But swinging doesn't bend them down to stay as ice storm do. Often you must have been them loaded with ice a sunny winter morning. So here the poet he desires to withdraw from the world and also his love of the mother earth as symbolized by this boy's game of swinging birches. The poet says that when he sees birches bend to left and right across the lines of dark trees, the idea comes in the poet's mind. And what is that? He says that some boy must have bent the trees, the birches, by swinging them up and down. But the poet, he at once says that the swinging of the boy cannot bend the trees so much down. It is the work of ice storm. When the wind blows and the ice-covered branches cannot bear the weight of the ice, so naturally they bend down. And when the sun comes out, the snow melts, the ice melts, and again the birches they go to their initial positions. The poet says that many times people have seen them loaded with ice in a sunny winter morning after a rain. In other words, we can say that the poet, he says that the swinging of the boy on the branches of the birch tree cannot bend them so much down. Hence, he suspects that because it is the work of ice. It is the work of ice. These birch trees had bent down. We can say that the poet, he has presented to us a very beautiful description of bending of these trees. Again, if we look at other lines of the poems, we can say that the poet, he wishes to convey the sportiness, the freedom of nature. So low for long, they never ride themselves. You may see their trunks arching in the woods, years afterwards, trailing their leaves on the ground, like girls on hands and knees that throw their hair before them over their heads to dry in the sun. So look at this beautiful imagery and beautiful simile presented by Frost. Here he describes a typical New England phenomena and he talks about the branches of the birch tree swinging in the wind. The branches are weighed down by the burden of snow and the movement of the twigs makes the upper crust of snow shatter to pieces which take a variety hues when the rays of the sun pass through them like a prism. A multicolored presentation is made when the ice breaks and through the ice the sun rays reflect multicolors. This is a beautiful image presented by Frost. Then because of the warmth of the sun, the pieces of snow they fall down upon the earth presenting the image of an avalanche and creating an illusion that the inner dome of heaven had fallen down. This picturesque depiction here, Frost talks about the branches of the birch trees, and he says that he remembers a girl, he remembers the girl who dries her hair in the sun. Years afterward, one may find them in the jungles, and their trunks may have been with their leaves, and at the same time, they look like a young girl who dry her tresses in front of their faces to take away the moisture from the hair, in front of their faces to take away the moisture from them in the warmth of sunlight. Through this pictorial description, Frost, he wants to impart a message to the suffering humanity to look for idea even in evil and not to lose courage even in the face of dire calamities. In a way, he inspires the reader not to lose hope. And the poet, he says, he beautifully presents the image of a young girl who has thrown her tresses in front of the sunlight to dry them. The poet, he says that when he was a boy, he himself was a boy, he was a swinger of the birch trees. I would like to read the lines. So was I. The poet says, so was I myself a swinger of birches, and so I am, and so I dream of going back to be. It's when I am weary of consideration. He says that whenever I am tired of this materialism, this materialistic world and its traditions, I like to go back to the nature to swing these birch branches. And life is too much like a pathless wood, where your face burns and tickles with the cobwebs broken across it, and one eye is weeping from a twigs having lashed across its open. I would like to get away from earth a while. I would like to go away from earth a while. I would like to get away from earth a while and then come back to it and begin over, to start over again. May not fate wilfully misunderstand me and half grant what I wish and snatch me away, not to return. Earth's the right place for love. And he ends the poem on a very hopeful note. Says that he prays to God to take him back to the good old days of his childhood. He says that he likes to go back to the childhood days because he is wearied of these materialistic things. This is the time when the woods seem endless and the twigs scratch the face of the and leave marks on the face. He says that the face gets tickled by cobwebs and one eye is always filled with tears. Then he wants to leave the earth and its worries and difficulties and go to the world of imaginative delights. But the poet says that he would like to do so only for a short while. He doesn't want to escape from the reality forever. He will come back to it. He wants to return back to the world of facts to fulfill his duties and responsibilities. He says that I am not escaping away from my duties, my worldly duties, but this is for a while. Fate should know his real desire, and his prayer should not be half granted. Fate should not take away from earth forever. He wants to come back to earth as it is on this earth only that we can get real love. Even heavenly pleasures are nothing in front of this earthly love. So in a way, we can say that the poet, he reflects his desire to withdraw from the materialistic world temporarily and play in the life of nature as symbolized by the boys' game of swinging birches. So, dear students, we conclude the poem and I hope you have understood the meaning of the poem. It's a very beautiful poem, Birches. Thank you very much.